What if I told you that right now, somewhere in the world, passengers are boarding aircraft that first took to the skies before your grandparents were born? While we're busy replacing our phones every 2 years and trading in cars that barely have 50,000 miles on them, these magnificent machines have been carrying people safely through the clouds for over 4 decades, and some are closing in on their 100th birthdays. After diving deep into aviation records and tracking down these flying time capsules, I discovered something that will blow your mind. At least 10 passenger aircrafts built between the 1930s and early 1980s are still earning their keep, still selling tickets, and basically giving the middle finger to everything we think we know about planned obsolescence. Today, we're going to meet these aviation survivors, counting down from the youngest veterans to the absolute granddaddy of them all. And trust me, number 1 is going to make your jaw drop. Kicking things off at number 10, we've got the Airbus A300B2-203 with registration EPIBR that's been flying for Iran Air since December 1981. Now, 44 years might not sound ancient, but here's the thing. Most commercial jets get sent to the boneyard after 25 to 30 years because the metal literally gets tired from all those pressure cycles. This particular aircraft was part of Iran Air's original European fleet expansion, back when Iran and the West were actually on speaking terms, and today it's literally the last of its breed still hauling paying customers. International sanctions have turned Iranian carriers into the MacGyvers of aviation maintenance. They can't buy new Western aircraft, so their mechanics have gotten scarily good at keeping old planes flying, manufacturing critical engine components in local machine shops that would normally come from General Electric. Flight tracking shows EPIBR still running regular domestic routes between Tehran and Mashhad, and during religious holidays, this thing is packed to the gills. Those GE CF650 engines have been rebuilt so many times that probably not a single original bolt remains, yet somehow they still produce their rated thrust and climb to 35,000 feet like it's nothing. Iranian engineers even developed their own metallurgy techniques to recreate turbine blades, basically reverse engineering 1970s technology with 2020's determination. Sliding into number 9, we find YV3471, a Boeing 737-2N1 that Venezuelan carrier Venezolana has been operating since February 1978. This 47-year-old narrow-body is what the 737 looked like before Boeing stretched it 16 different ways and stuffed it with computers. Walking into this cabin is like time travel. The overhead bins can barely hold a purse. Every armrest is built in ashtrays from when people smoked on planes like chimneys, and you've got those old-school Boeing buttons that nobody under 40 has ever seen. Venezuela keeps this dinosaur flying for the same reason your cousin still drives that 1995 Honda Civic. It's paid for, and it runs. US sanctions mean they can't get financing for new birds, while government-controlled fuel prices make operating these gas-guzzling oldies weirdly economical. The real nightmare is finding parts for those Pratt & Whitney JT8D engines since Pratt shut down the production line when Bush Sr. was president. Venezuelan mechanics have turned into savant-level scavengers, stripping retired aircraft down to their skeletons and even machining parts from raw metal. This past May, the plane's hydraulics decided to take a vacation during landing at Caracas, but within a week, boom, back in service. Because when you can't buy new, you get really good at fixing old. The maintenance crew has gotten so creative they've started 3D printing some non-critical parts, though they'll never admit which ones. Number 8 is where things get properly interesting with CGN-LK, a Boeing 737-2K2C that left the factory in December 1974. Canadian outfit Nolanor Aviation runs this 51-year-old beast, confirmed as the oldest jet airliner in regular commercial service anywhere on Earth. But here's the kicker. This isn't some poverty spec operation. This 737 flies because it's literally the best tool for the job. Based in Montreal, CGN-LK serves Nunavut mining communities, landing on gravel runways that would turn modern jets into aluminum confetti. The aircraft rocks a Mad Max-style gravel kit, stone deflector on the nose gear, belly armor plating, and vortex dissipators keeping rocks out of the engines. The cabin switches between 119 economy seats and mining equipment, sometimes both on one flight. Nolanor packed modern avionics including ADS-B and Stage 3 hush kits into this thing, proving with enough determination you can teach an old dog new regulations. Pilots say those northern winter landings feel like controlled crashing, but CGN-LK just shrugs it off. Number 7 takes us to North Korea, where Air Koryo operates P-835, an Illusion Tu-18D from 1969. This 56-year-old 4-engine turboprop started with Aeroflot before reaching Pyongyang in 1981, and despite having modern jets, they kept this Soviet relic running. The Tu-18 perfectly serves the politically important Pyongyang-Samjeon route to Mount Paektu, North Korea's mythological Mount Rushmore. Its turboprops handle mountainous terrain better than jets, flying low enough for landscape views. Inside, it's frozen USSR, 90 seats in 2-3 configuration, bus-style overhead racks, and dead reading lights. 4 Ivchenko AL-20 turboprops run on hoarded Soviet parts and reverse-engineered North Korean components. Impressive and terrifying. Flight attendants still serve the same Koryo burger since 1989. Number 6 features the Antonov AN-2 twin turboprops from 1968. Now 57 years old, still connecting Siberian communities with Angara, IR Aero, and polar airlines where roads don't exist. The AN-24's longevity secret: no pressurization means no pressure cycles, less airframe stress, like that old manual window pickup outlasting the electric one. Its overbuilt construction laughs at Siberian weather. The July 2025 crash of a 1976 AN-25 RV reminded everyone time wins eventually. Still, 35 passenger AN-24s operate Yakuts to Magadan, their AL-24 engine starting in battery-killing cold. Those spare parts got interesting after 2022 made Ukraine-Russia trading impossible. At number 5, we hit peak Soviet engineering with the Antonov AN-2 biplane, and trying to nail down the oldest one still carrying passengers is like trying to find the oldest Toyota Corolla still running. Several examples from that very first 1947 production batch are still hauling passengers, making them roughly 78 years old and looking like they flew straight out of an Indiana Jones movie. The AN-2's performance numbers sound like someone's making fun of aviation. It cruises at 19 knots, which your grandmother could probably match on the highway, lands in 200 meters, which is basically your driveway, and has a stall speed so low that pilots joke it only stops flying when they get bored. But these ridiculous characteristics make it absolutely perfect for certain jobs that nothing else can touch. Over in Lithuania and Poland, AN-2s carry skydivers and tourists who want that vintage experience, while in Russia's frozen north, they're literally the only connection to communities with runways too short for anything invented after 1950. The fabric wings can be patched with stuff from Home Depot. That ancient radial engine design from the 1930s is still being cranked out in China like it's no big deal, and mechanics can fix the whole aircraft with tools your grandfather probably has in his garage. Number 4 takes us to South Africa, where we meet ZSAUB, a Douglas DC-4 nicknamed Altaniqua the South African Airways took delivery of in May 10, 1946. This 79-year-old propliner is one of only 2 passenger-rated DC-4s left on the entire planet, and originally flew long-haul routes across the South Atlantic when that was still an adventure instead of a boring overnight flight. The South African Airways Museum Society and Skyclass Aviation treat this bird like the flying Mona Lisa it is. Step inside and you're transported to the 1940s with wood veneer trim and Art Deco styling that makes modern planes look like flying Walmarts. Those 4 Pratt & Whitney R2000 radials still gulp 100-octane aviation gas at a rate that would make any normal airline executive weep. Each engine pumping out 1,450 horsepower and burning money faster than a casino. But when you're charging premium prices for people to experience the golden age of aviation, normal economics go out the window. Every 5th year, they x-ray the main wing spar like it's getting a medical checkup, and the engines get rebuilt using parts they machine on site or salvage from military C-54s rusting in the desert. Climbing into our number 3 position, we meet CGWIR, a Douglas DC-3C that first flew on April 13, 1943, making it 82 years old and famous from the reality TV show Ice Pilots NWT. Buffalo Airways flies this thing out of Yellowknife, Canada, and unlike museum parts that come out for special occasions, CGWIR works for a living like a Depression-era farmer, hauling everything from eggs to mining equipment across the Northwest Territories. That green and white paint job has become Instagram famous, with aviation geeks camping out at gravel strips that haven't seen a paving crew since the aircraft was young. Buffalo Airways runs DC-3s because nothing else invented can do what they do: land on surfaces that would shred modern landing gear, operate in temperatures that would turn jet fuel into jelly, and get fixed in the middle of nowhere with sheet metal and determination. Even after a 2013 engine fire that forced an emergency landing, which would have sent most planes to the scrapyard, CGWIR got patched up and thrown back into service like a hockey player with missing teeth. When demand spiked, they'll cramp 28 passengers into those seats, with locals treating it like a flying bus while aviation nerds from Tokyo and London book seats just to say they've flown on a piece of history. Our runner-up at number 2 is OHLCH, better known as Hoteli, a Douglas DC-3C that rolled off the assembly line on Christmas Eve 1942 for Pan American Grace Airways. The military immediately grabbed it for World War II service as C-53C serial number 432033, and after doing its part to defeat fascism, it flew for Aero OY, which became Finnair, then pulled a 15-year stint with the Finnish Air Force. Since 1986, this 83-year-old veteran has been carrying paying passengers on summer sightseeing flights and private charters, including weddings at 2,000 feet because Finland knows how to party. What makes Hoteli special is the obsessive care it gets from the Finnish DC Association. Every winter in Vasa, this bird gets the aviation equivalent of a full physical, including eddy current scanning that can spot metal fatigue thinner than a human hair. The Finns somehow convinced EU regulators to let them fly commercially, as long as they maintain modern radios, GPS, and ADS-B transponders. Those twin Pratt & Whitney R1830 radials burn the same 100 LL fuel that Cessnas use, making fuel logistics easier than feeding the big radials. The association has already set money aside for major spar work in 2027, planning to keep Hoteli airborne at least until the DC-3 hits 100 in 2035. And now, the moment of truth, the granddaddy of them all. The oldest passenger-carrying aircraft still in regular service anywhere on Earth is N-17-3D, the flagship Detroit, a Douglas DC-3 that American Airlines took delivery of on March 2, 1937. Let that sink in. This aircraft is 88 years old, predating jet engines, pressurized cabs, radar, and some of the airports it now visits. Back in the day, American Airlines flew N-17-3D on their premium Chicago to New York route, where rich passengers paid what would be $1,500 today to sleep in one of the 21 berths during the overnight flight. Basically a flying hotel before that was cool. When World War II kicked off, the Army Air Forces drafted it as a C-49E transport, and after helping save democracy, it bounced around regional carriers and even sprayed crops before a group of American Airlines retirees formed the flagship Detroit Foundation, bought their baby back, and started a restoration that's still ongoing because perfection takes time. Want to fly on this legend today? Fork over $150 to become a Foundation member, which gets you a 30-minute flight whenever the aircraft hits the airshow circuit. And yes, this counts as a real commercial operation where money changes hands for transportation. The volunteer crew treats this plane better than most people treat their children, constantly fixing, upgrading, and improving something. Engines get overhauled every 1,200 hours, and they've inspected the wing spars with ultrasonic equipment that science fiction writers hadn't even imagined when this bird was built. Insurance costs more than some people's houses, but donations and media coverage help keep the dream alive. Here's what makes flagship Detroit's survival absolutely mind-blowing. It's not hiding in some sketchy country with loose regulations. This aircraft flies all over the United States under the FAA's microscope, meeting every single safety requirement and passing every inspection that grounds younger planes. The machine that once represented the bleeding edge of luxury now serves as our connection to aviation's golden age, carrying passengers who weren't even thought of when it first retired from airline service. These 10 aircraft teach us something profound about what happens when human stubbornness meets excellent engineering. In the frozen corners of Canada and Russia, they survive because they're the only option that works. In sanctioned countries, they fly because politics killed the alternatives. Next time you grumble about your 5-year-old laptop being slow, remember that somewhere out there, an 88-year-old airplane is running through its pre-flight checklist, getting ready to lift another load of wonderstruck passengers into the sky, proving that with enough care, determination, and probably a little insanity, some things really can last forever.